Hi, I'm Mark Fischer, candidate for the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in District 50. This is Mark and Sam on the back porch. And if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please go to my website, www.markwfischer.com. Fischer is spelled F-I-S-C-H-E-R.
And welcome back to Mark and Sam on the back porch. Mark, we were talking before we got started about the Turnpike. As I traveled the Turnpike recently, and it's in terrible shape.
You survived, my friend.
Oh my goodness, it's in terrible shape. It costs an arm and a leg to travel it. What's going on with the Turnpike?
Well, Sam, I had printed out an article that I want to refer to from the Patriot News.
Okay.
It's on their PennLive.com website, and it was from the 27th of August. It talks about the Pennsylvania the actual title, if you want to look it up, Pennsylvania Turnpike is billions of dollars in debt. Now, I'm going to refer to this article. We don't usually do a lot of referring, but there's so much material here we've got to talk about.
Okay.
This goes back to Act 44, the Pennsylvania legislature. This was 2007, okay? And they created Act 44. It was part of the move to turn Interstate 80 into a toll road along with the Turnpike.
Okay.
And they had a plan to do this, and they made some revenue projections. And at the same time they did this, they saddled the Turnpike system with an obligation of $450 million per year that they would have to pay for each toll road, the Turnpike and 80, which was going to be $900 million, just short of $1 billion with a B dollars per year, that they were going to have to siphon out of revenues and use. Now, the premise of that, there are states that do this and states that don't. And if you research this a little further, you'll find that the states that do not follow this script do better in terms of revenue, in terms of keeping the road operating.
Right.
So this is a burden that is a negative on the toll road. Now, you can get into a whole argument about the government operating toll roads. And I'm very sympathetic to those arguments, because the less government distractions we have in the areas we shouldn't, the more we can focus on the things that we should be doing.
Right.
Okay. So, but that argument aside, they saddled the Turnpike system with this kind of debt. Now, as you know, I-80 was never converted to a toll road.
Right.
So the obligation per year was cut in half. And what the Turnpike owes the state of Pennsylvania is $450 million. Now, some of that goes, it's a staggering amount.
That's an unbelievable amount of money.
Yeah. And the idea was that they were going to pay for other infrastructure that supported the Turnpike. You know, you can argue that feeder roads and things like that need to be supported. Now, there may be some basis for that, but you'd have to get rather deep into the analysis. But one of the other things they decided to do was, we're going to subsidize transit agencies with that money. So here you go, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority gets a healthy chunk of the money, because you can't find a transit authority in the United States that operates in a positive financial state. They are all negatives.
Right.
And this is a favorite cause of liberals. We need to provide mass transit. Well, you know, in the 50th district, how many mass transit projects do we really have here?
Just my truck when I'm hauling about 7 kids.
Now, there are some county transportation efforts. There are some things that go on. But the idea is the ridership is low. It doesn't pay its way.
Right.
And it was done years ago, many of these, under the idea of, we're going to save fuel, we're going to save resources by getting people to,
mass transportation.
Yeah. And I've ridden on these all over the nation as I've traveled and worked, and I've never had what I would consider a good trip.
Yeah.
I mean, the D.C. Metro, need I say more?
Yeah. Enough said.
If you've ever rode that, we used to call it the vomit comet, because every morning going into D.C., somebody gets sick and they empty the train.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's a little side note. Anyway.
Thanks for
that picture. TMI. Well, okay. So we get on into this a little bit, and they're not meeting that obligation, the Turnpike.
How in the world can they pay that much money to the state and still maintain the turnpike like it should be maintained.
with sky-high rates.
Exactly. Well, you're right.
And
Okay.
what happens when you increase the cost of something dramatically? People stop using it. What do
Right.
we see? We see trucks on 79 going down to 68 to cut across to avoid the toll.
I do myself. I go 68 if I'm going to Harrisburg, Hershey, anywhere out in that area, Carlisle, whatever. I go 68 to avoid the turnpike.
Well, I take the back roads. I don't go into
Yeah.
Maryland because of their concealed carry rules. And I carry, so that wouldn't be good.
Right.
Anyway, but the debt, this is staggering. The Turnpike Commission today, now this law was passed in 2007. We're in
Okay.
2012. The Turnpike Commission is now more than $7 billion with a B in debt.
Oh my goodness.
$7 billion. It was $2 billion in debt back in 2002 before this was even thought of. But since then we've piled on. And these payments, are in jeopardy, as is the ridership. The tolls, and I want to find the, here it is. The tolls have risen sharply. Now next January, the cash toll from driving a car from Ohio to New Jersey will be $39.10 just to use that highway. And the Easy Pass rate will go up to $30 and change.
That's horrible.
Think back to 2003, the cost was $14.70 in 2003. So 9 years later, we're almost triple. Almost triple. And
Yeah.
people aren't using it.
No,
They're not going to.
they're not going to
These
either.
kind of schemes are foolish. And as a potential legislator, these are the kind of things I want to let people know about.
Right.
And, pointing out the problem is one thing. You've got to have solutions.
Right.
And number one, the $450 million a year that they're saddled with needs to not happen. That needs to be eliminated. Now, we've got an upside down $7 billion situation. We need to stop expecting that. And the cry is, but PennDOT can't do its projects. We can't fund transit. As I have said repeatedly, we have to cut. Now, $450 million cut from PennDOT sounds like, a tragic
Right.
situation. Now, but what were they doing before they got the $450 million a year?
Exactly.
And how much of it is actually going to road improvements versus these little pet transportation projects for mass transit?
Right.
Now, mass transit, another way to get votes. This is another way to
Right.
reward people, provide those kind of things and encourage them to vote my way. I'll keep doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, this may be a strange way to look at it, but I would think you have to look at your different infrastructure projects based on the amount of people that are going to use them compared to what's in the worst disrepair, and go that way. And it just doesn't seem like that's what's happening right now.
No, I don't think so.
No.
But more than that, we've got to look at these from the standpoint of what are realistic funding amounts
Right.
to do what we have to do. There is a point in time, and this is why you have elected representatives. They have to say, we are doing as much as we can do,
Right.
and we have to stop. I mentioned in an earlier segment about the $400 million roughly surplus in the budget from projected tax revenue costs. And I just got an update. I don't think that number is going to be what they thought it was going to be. But instead of putting it into projects like this where there were shortfalls, they continued additional projects. They kept them funded. We're sliding upside down. This
Sure.
has to stop. Look, if you send me to Harrisburg, these are the kind of things that not only will I stand up against, try to correct, I will keep you informed of the discussion, of the situation, what the choices are, why the hard choices were made,
Right.
what the impact is. We have to be realistic. I like to say we've got to let the adults solve the problem.
Right.
And that's what it is. You've got a checkbook. It doesn't have enough money in it. You got to pick what you're going to buy.
That's exactly
That's the way
right.
it is. So,
Well, once again, you heard it straight from Mark Fischer. This is Mark and Sam on the back porch. We've got a lot more to come. Stay tuned.